Maria Santos wiped her tired hands on her apron as she finished cleaning the last marble countertop in the enormous kitchen. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 11 times, echoing through the empty mansion. Another long day was finally over, but somehow this particular evening felt different, heavier. Today was her 28th birthday, though she doubted anyone in the world remembered or cared. The irony wasn't lost on her that she spent her days making this house spotless and beautiful for a family that barely acknowledged her existence, while her own small apartment remained a mess because she was too exhausted to clean it after working here. She pulled her phone from her pocket, hopping to see a message, a call, anything. The screen showed no notifications. Her mother had passed away 3 years ago from cancer, and her father had walked out when she was 12. Her younger brother lived across the country in California, struggling with his own problems. They hadn't spoken in months. Maria walked slowly through the mansion's grand rooms, turning off lights as she went. The Blackwood family had left that morning for their month-long vacation in Europe. Mr. Blackwood owned several tech companies and was worth more money than Maria could even imagine. His wife spent her days at charity galas and spa treatments, while their teenage twins attended an exclusive boarding school. She passed the family photos lining the hallway walls, pictures of exotic vacations, private jets, and celebrations filled with smiling faces. Maria had cleaned around these frames hundreds of times, but tonight she stopped to really look at them. The Blackwood family seemed to live in a completely different world from hers. In the kitchen, Maria opened the refrigerator and pulled out a small cupcake she had bought herself on the way to work that morning. It was nothing fancy, just vanilla with white frosting from the grocery store bakery. But it was all she could afford after paying rent, utilities, and sending a little money to help. She placed the cupcake on the pristine kitchen island and reached into her purse for the single birthday candle she had purchased. Her hands trembled slightly as she pushed it into the soft frosting. This felt more pathetic than she had expected. 28 years old, completely alone, celebrating her birthday in someone else's kitchen. Maria found matches in one of the drawers and lit the tiny candle. The flame flickered in the dim kitchen, casting dancing shadows on the walls. She had always been taught to make a wish before blowing out birthday candles, but what could she possibly wish for that seemed realistic? A better job? She had been trying for years to find something that paid more than minimum wage, but without a college degree, opportunities were limited. Love. After her last relationship ended badly 2 years ago, she had given up on finding someone who would truly care about her. Money? That seemed like an impossible dream. Standing there in the silence, Maria felt the weight of her loneliness crash over her like a wave. She had spent years telling herself that things would get better, that hard work would eventually pay off, that someone would notice her efforts and give her a chance. But nothing had changed. If anything, life seemed to be getting harder. She closed her eyes and made the same wish she made every year, for something, anything, to change. For her life to mean something more than just cleaning other people's messes and going home to an empty apartment. For someone to see her as more than just invisible help. Just as she leaned forward to blow out the candle, she heard the front door open. Maria's heart jumped into her throat. The Blackwoods weren't supposed to return for weeks. Had someone broken in? Should she hide? Call the police. Footsteps echoed through the marble foyer, slow and deliberate. Maria quietly blew out her candle and grabbed a kitchen knife from the block, her hands shaking. The footsteps grew closer, heading toward the kitchen. She pressed herself against the wall beside the doorway, holding her breath. "Hello, is someone here?" The voice was male, but not threatening. It sounded tired, almost defeated. Maria recognized the voice immediately. It was Jonathan Blackwood himself, but he wasn't supposed to be home. Something must have happened. She set down the knife and stepped into view, her heart still racing. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm so sorry, I was just finishing up. I didn't expect anyone home tonight." Jonathan stood in the doorway, and Maria was shocked by his appearance. The usually immaculate billionaire looked disheveled. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his tie was loose, and there was something broken in his expression that she had never seen before. He carried a single suitcase, and his eyes were red-rimmed as if he hadn't slept in days. "Maria, right?" he said, seeming surprised to see her. "I'm sorry, I forgot you had keys to come and go. I needed to be somewhere familiar." They stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Maria noticed his gaze fall on the cupcake with the unlit candle still stuck in the frosting. Embarrassment flooded through her. "I'm sorry, I'll clean this up and leave immediately." "Wait," Jonathan said, stepping closer. "Is today your birthday?" Maria felt her cheeks burn with shame. Here she was, caught celebrating her pathetic little birthday in his kitchen like some kind of intruder. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I know I shouldn't have." "How old are you turning?" 28, sir." Jonathan stared at the cupcake for a long moment, then looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. "You're spending your birthday alone, cleaning my house." It wasn't a question, and Maria didn't know how to respond. The truth was too embarrassing to admit out loud. "Where's your family, friends?" he asked. "I don't really have," Maria started, then stopped. She didn't want to explain her pathetic life to this man who had everything. "It's okay, sir, I was just leaving." "No," Jonathan said firmly. "Sit down." Maria hesitated. In 3 years of working for the Blackwood family, she had barely exchanged more than a few polite words with any of them. Now Jonathan was asking her to sit in his kitchen like they were equals. It felt wrong. "Please," he added, and something in his tone made her obey. Maria perched nervously on one of the bar stools while Jonathan moved around the kitchen with surprising familiarity. He pulled wine glasses from a cabinet and opened a bottle of champagne that probably cost more than Maria made in a month. "You shouldn't be alone on your birthday," he said, pouring 2 glasses. "Nobody should be alone on their birthday." Maria accepted the champagne glass with trembling hands. "Mr. Blackwood, I don't understand. Aren't you supposed to be in Europe with your family?" Jonathan's face darkened, and he took a long drink before answering. "My family decided they didn't want me on the trip. Apparently, I've become too difficult to be around." There was pain in his voice that Maria recognized. It was the same loneliness she carried, just wrapped in expensive clothes and hidden behind wealth. For the first time, she saw Jonathan Blackwood not as her intimidating boss, but as another human being who was hurting. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Don't be sorry for me," Jonathan replied with a bitter laugh. "I'm a billionaire, remember. I'm supposed to have everything figured out." He relit her birthday candle with a gold lighter from his pocket. The small flame danced between them, creating an intimate bubble of light in the vast, dark kitchen. "Make a wish, Maria. A real one this time. Something you actually want, not just something you think you deserve." Maria looked at this powerful man who seemed just as lost as she was, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to wish for something bigger. Something that seemed impossible but felt true in her heart. She wished for a life where she mattered, where someone saw her worth, where her kindness and hard work meant something beyond just keeping other people's lives comfortable. She blew out the candle, and Jonathan raised his champagne glass. "Happy birthday, Maria, to new beginnings." As they clinked glasses in the quiet kitchen, Maria felt something shift inside. 3 days had passed since that strange birthday night, and Maria couldn't stop thinking about her conversation with Jonathan Blackwood. She had arrived at work the next morning expecting everything to return to normal, for him to pretend their midnight talk had never happened. Instead, she found a handwritten note on the kitchen counter. "Maria, thank you for sharing your birthday with me. I haven't felt human in a long time. Please take the day off with pay. You deserve it more than you know. Jonathan." Attached to the note was a check for $500, more money than Maria usually made in 2 weeks. She had stared at it for 10 minutes, unable to believe it was real. No one had ever given her something like this without expecting anything in return. Now, as she cleaned the library on Thursday morning, Maria heard footsteps approaching. Jonathan appeared in the doorway, looking much better than he had 3 nights ago. He had shaved, his clothes were neat, and there was something different in his posture, more determined. "Good morning, Maria." "Good morning, Mr. Blackwood. I hope you're feeling better, sir." "I am, actually. Can we talk for a minute?" Maria set down her cleaning supplies and followed him to the sitting area by the library's large windows. She perched on the edge of an expensive leather chair while Jonathan sat across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "I've been thinking about our conversation," he began. "About what you said regarding your life, your situation. I want to help." Maria's stomach tightened. "Sir, I appreciate the bonus check, but I don't need charity. I work hard for what I earn." "This isn't charity," Jonathan said firmly. "This is an opportunity. How long have you been cleaning houses?" "About 6 years, since I was 22. "And before that?" "I worked at a restaurant, a grocery store, different places. I never finished college because I had to help support my mother when she got sick." Jonathan nodded thoughtfully. "What did you study before you had to leave school?" Maria hesitated. It had been so long since anyone asked about her dreams instead of just her work schedule. "Business administration. I wanted to run my own company someday, maybe help other people start their businesses. I was good with numbers, planning, organizing things." You still are, Jonathan said. I've watched how you manage your work here. You're more organized than my actual business managers. You see problems and fix them without being asked. You anticipate what needs to be done. Maria felt a warm flush of pride. In 6 years of cleaning jobs, no one had ever noticed those skills. Most employers barely noticed her at all. I have a proposal, Jonathan continued. I need someone to help me with a new project I'm starting, a foundation that provides business training and microloans to people who need a second chance. People like you who have the skills and drive but never got the opportunities. Maria's heart began to race. I don't understand what you're asking. I'm asking if you'd consider leaving the cleaning business and coming to work for me as my foundation coordinator. You'd help develop programs, interview applicants, manage the day-to-day operations. It would mean going back to school part-time to finish your degree, which the foundation would pay for. The salary would be $60,000 a year to start, with full benefits. The numbers didn't make sense in Maria's head. $60,000. That was more than 3 times what she made cleaning houses. It was enough to rent a decent apartment to help get back on his feet, to have a life instead of just surviving. Why, she whispered, why would you offer this to me? Jonathan was quiet for a moment, staring out the window at his perfectly manicured gardens. 3 nights ago, you shared your birthday with a broken man you barely knew. You were kind without expecting anything in return. You listened to me complain about my problems even though your life is infinitely harder than mine. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Maria shook her head. Everyone in my life wants something from me. Money, connections, opportunities, status. Everyone has an angle, a way they're trying to use my wealth for their own benefit. But you just treated me like a person. You shared your cupcake and your champagne and asked for nothing. I was just being polite, Maria said. No, you were being human, and that reminded me what I've been missing. Jonathan turned to face her directly. I built this fortune because I wanted to help people, but somewhere along the way, I got lost in the numbers and the deals and the power games. I forgot what actually matters. Your family. My family is angry because I told them I'm done playing their social games. I'm not funding any more pointless charity galas that raise money just to throw more parties. I want to do something real, something that actually changes lives. They think I've lost my mind. Maria understood now why he had come home early from vacation. They left you in Europe. They made it clear they preferred I not continue the trip. My wife said I was being dramatic and embarrassing. My kids barely looked up from their phones when I said goodbye. His voice carried deep sadness. But you know what? Maybe they're right about me being dramatic. Maybe I needed to be dramatic to remember who I wanted to be. Maria felt tears pricking her eyes. She recognized the pain of not being seen or valued by the people who were supposed to love you most. I can't accept this job, she said quietly. Jonathan's face fell. Why not? Because I'm not qualified. I don't have a degree. I don't know anything about running foundations or managing programs. You'd be taking a huge risk on someone who might fail and waste your money. Maria, Jonathan said gently, Do you think I built a technology empire by only hearing people with perfect qualifications? The best employees I've ever had were people who cared more about doing good work than having impressive resumes. He stood up and walked to his desk, returning with a folder. I had my team research what it would take to set up this foundation properly. The legal requirements, the staffing needs, the operational challenges. Do you know what I realized? Maria shook her head. I need someone who understands what it's like to struggle, who knows what real help looks like versus what just makes rich people feel good about themselves. I need someone who will fight for the people we're trying to serve, not someone who will just tell me what I want to hear. He handed her the folder. This is a rough business plan for the Santos Foundation for Second Chances. Yes, I named it after you. Look it over, think about it, and tell me if you see ways to make it better. Maria's hands shook as she opened the folder. The papers inside were covered with detailed plans, budget projections, and program descriptions. It was real. This wasn't just a wealthy man's impulse. It was a serious business proposal. You want to name a foundation after me. You changed my perspective in one conversation. That's worth commemorating. Maria read through the documents, her mind racing. The foundation would provide business training, small loans, and mentoring to people who wanted to start their own companies but lacked resources or education. It would focus especially on women, minorities, and people who had faced significant challenges. This could really help people, she said softly. Exactly, and you could run it. You understand these challenges because you've lived them. You have the skills because you've had to develop them to survive. And you have the heart for it because you genuinely care about others. Maria looked up at Jonathan, seeing hope and excitement in his eyes that hadn't been there before. What if I fail? What if you don't? What if you're exactly what this project needs? He sat back down across from her. Maria, 3 days ago you made a birthday wish. I don't know what you wished for, but I'm hoping it was for a chance to do something meaningful with your life. It was exactly what she had wished for, and the accuracy of his guess sent chills down her spine. I need time to think, she said. Of course, take all the time you need. But know this, I'm not offering this job because I feel sorry for you. I'm offering it because I think you're the right person for it. And selfishly, because I think working with someone like you might help me remember why I wanted to be successful in the first place. Maria closed the folder and stood up slowly. Can I ask you something? Anything. If I say no, if I'm too scared to try this, will you still treat me the same way? Will you still be kind to me when I'm just your maid? Jonathan's expression grew serious. Maria, you were never just my maid. I was just too blind and selfish to see it before. But whether you take this job or not, you've already taught me something important. You've reminded me that everyone has value, everyone has potential, and everyone deserves to be seen. As Maria walked back to her cleaning supplies, her mind buzzed with possibilities and fears. For the first time in her adult life, someone was offering her a real chance at building something meaningful. But accepting it would mean risking everything on herself, believing that she was worth the investment. That evening, she called in California. They talked for 2 hours, the longest conversation they'd had in years. She told him about the job offer, about her fears, about the possibility of finally having enough money to help him get clean and start over. "Take it, Maria," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've been taking care of everyone else your whole life. It's time someone took care of you." After hanging up, Maria made herself a simple dinner and sat at her small kitchen table with Jonathan's folder spread before her. She read every page twice, making notes in the margins, thinking of improvements and questions. Despite her fears, she found herself getting excited about the possibilities. Maybe she was qualified for this job. Maybe she did understand what people needed because she had needed it herself. Maybe her experience struggling and surviving had prepared her for exactly this opportunity. For the second time in a week, Maria made a birthday wish. Even 6 months later, Maria Santos stood in front of the mirror in her new apartment bathroom, adjusting the collar of her business suit. It still felt strange to dress for an office instead of wearing cleaning uniforms, but she was getting used to it. Today was important. The Santos Foundation was officially launching its first round of loan approvals, and Maria had 15 appointments scheduled with potential recipients. The foundation office was located in downtown, a bright and welcoming space that Maria had helped design. Instead of the intimidating marble and gold that decorated most wealthy establishments, they had chosen warm colors, comfortable furniture, and inspirational artwork created by local artists who had received foundation support. Maria arrived early, as she always did, and found Jonathan already there with coffee and pastries from the bakery across the street. This had become their Monday morning tradition, planning the week ahead while sharing breakfast like normal colleagues, not like a billionaire and his former maid. "Big day," Jonathan said, handing her a cup of coffee prepared exactly how she liked it. "Are you ready?" "I think so. I've reviewed all the applications 3 times. These 15 businesses could really make a difference in their communities." Over the past 6 months, Maria had thrown herself into learning everything she could about running a foundation. She had finished her business degree through evening and weekend classes, completed nonprofit management training, and shadowed experienced foundation directors. Jonathan had been right about her natural skills. She excelled at identifying which applicants were serious and which ones just wanted easy money. "Tell me about today's appointments," Jonathan said, sitting across from her at the small conference table. Maria pulled out her notes. "First up is, she wants to open a center in her neighborhood because there's nowhere safe for working parents to leave their kids. She's been watching children informally for years and has all the right instincts." "Oh, what does she need from us?" "25,000 for licensing, equipment, and the first year's rent. She's got the location picked out and already has a waiting list of parents who want to enroll their kids." Jonathan nodded approvingly. This was exactly the kind of project they had created the foundation to support. "Then there's," Maria continued. "He's a former mechanic who wants to start a mobile repair service for people who can't afford to take their cars to regular shops. He'd bring tools and parts directly to customers' homes or workplaces." "A smart business model," What's his background? He lost his job when the garage where he worked closed down. He's been unemployed for 8 months, but has been fixing cars for friends and neighbors. He just needs a van and startup equipment. They went through the entire list together. Maria had learned to evaluate each application not just on the business plan, but on the person behind it. She looked for determination, community connections, and realistic expectations. She had become skilled at spotting applicants who understood hard work versus those who thought starting a business would be easy money. The first appointment arrived at 9 o'clock sharp. Was a small woman in her 40s with calloused hands and tired eyes. But when she talked about working with children, her whole face lit up. She brought photo albums showing the kids she had cared for over the years, letters from parents thanking her, and hand-drawn pictures from the children. "I've been watching kids since I was a teenager," explained. "My neighbors trust me because they know I love their children like my own. But to make it legal and serve more families, I need a real facility." Maria walked through the loan terms: low interest rate, flexible payment schedule, and ongoing mentoring support. When eyes filled with tears as she signed the paperwork, Maria felt the same sense of purpose she had experienced on her birthday night 6 months ago. By lunchtime, Maria had approved 12 of the 15 applications. One applicant had unrealistic expectations about profits. Another lacked the community connections necessary for success. And the third wasn't quite ready but would be encouraged to reapply in 6 months with a stronger plan. "How does it feel?" Jonathan asked as they walked to lunch at their usual restaurant. "Like this is what I was meant to do," Maria replied without hesitation. "Every person who walked through that door today reminded me of myself a year ago, talented but stuck because they couldn't get anyone to take a chance on them." During lunch, Jonathan shared updates about his family situation. His wife had filed for divorce after he refused to return to their previous lifestyle of endless social obligations and meaningless charity events. His children were slowly coming around to understanding his new priorities, though it was still difficult. "I'm sorry about the divorce," Maria said. "I know that must be painful." "It is," Jonathan admitted. "But I'm learning the difference between being alone and being lonely. I was loneliest when I was surrounded by people who only cared about my money." After lunch, they returned to finish the day's appointments. The last client was a young man named David who wanted to start a lawn care business. He had aged out of foster care at 18 and had been supporting himself with odd jobs ever since. His application was simple but thoughtful. He wanted to provide reliable, affordable yard work for elderly residents and busy families. "I'm good with my hands and I like working outdoors," David explained. "I just need equipment and a truck to get started. I already have a list of people who said they'd hire me." As Maria reviewed his financial projections and references, she saw herself in his determination. Like her, he had been forced to be independent early in life. Like her, he understood the value of honest work and treating people with respect. "David," Maria said, "I'm approving your loan, but I want to add something extra." The foundation also provides mentoring, and I think you'd benefit from meeting some of our other successful applicants. Might need help with yard work at her center. David's face broke into a wide smile. You mean it? You're really going to help me start my business? I'm going to help you help yourself, Maria corrected. That's what we do here. After David left, Maria and Jonathan sat in their office as the sun set outside their windows. The walls were covered with thank you letters, photos from successful businesses, and newspaper articles about foundation recipients who had made a difference in their communities. Do you ever miss your old life? Jonathan asked suddenly. Maria considered the question carefully. I miss the simplicity sometimes. When I was cleaning houses, I knew exactly what was expected of me every day. This job requires me to make decisions that affect other people's lives. That's scary. Oh, but do you miss it? He pressed. No, Maria said firmly. I don't miss feeling invisible. I don't miss going home exhausted with nothing to show for it except a paycheck that barely covered my bills. I don't miss believing that I wasn't worth investing in. Jonathan smiled. You know what I realized today watching you with those applicants? What? You've become the person you needed when you were struggling. You're giving other people the chance someone gave you. Maria felt tears prick her eyes. Someone gave me the chance because he saw me sharing a lonely birthday cupcake and recognized that I was more than just his maid. I saw it, Jonathan agreed, but it was already there. I just pointed it out. That evening, Maria drove to her brother's apartment. He had moved to her city 2 months earlier, finally ready to get clean and start over. With Maria's help and a part-time job at one of the foundation's partner businesses, he was building a new life. They cooked dinner together in his small kitchen, talking about their week and making plans for the future. Was considering applying for a foundation loan to start a landscaping business with David. The young man Maria had approved that afternoon. I'm proud of you, said as they cleaned dishes. Mom would be proud too. I'm proud of us, Maria corrected. We both fought our way back from some dark places. Later that night, Maria sat on her apartment balcony with a cup of tea, looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, and new opportunities to change lives. In her purse was a small cupcake she had bought that afternoon, not because it was anyone's birthday, but because it reminded her of how much can change in a single moment of human connection. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Jonathan. Thank you for making this foundation everything I hoped it would be. Your birthday wish came true, but so did mine. Maria smiled and typed back, What did you wish for that night? His response came quickly, to remember what it felt like to make a real difference in the world. As Maria prepared for bed, she reflected on the journey from that lonely birthday night to this fulfilling life. She had learned that sometimes the most important moments happen when we least expect them, and sometimes the people who change our lives are the ones we least expect to notice us. The foundation had grown beyond Jonathan's original vision, partly because Maria brought insights he couldn't have anticipated. She understood not just what struggling people needed financially, but what they needed emotionally. to be seen, to be believed in, and to be given dignity along with opportunity. 3 more foundation offices were planned for other cities, and Maria would oversee their development. She had been accepted into a master's program for nonprofit administration. Most importantly, she had learned to see herself the way Jonathan had seen her that birthday night, as someone worthy of investment, capable of growth, and valuable beyond measure. Before falling asleep, Maria made one last wish. Not for herself this time, but for all the people who would walk through the foundation's doors in the coming years. That they would find not just financial support, but someone who would see their potential and believe in their dreams the way someone had believed in hers. The last thing she remembered before drifting off was the feeling of that first birthday candle, the moment when her life had begun to change, because a lonely billionaire had chosen to treat his maid like a human being worth knowing. Sometimes the most extraordinary transformations begin with the simplest acts of kindness, and sometimes a single conversation over a grocery store cupcake can redirect the course of multiple lives forever. It wasn't her birthday. She wished for the courage to believe in herself as much as Jonathan Blackwood apparently believed in her chest. She didn't know what this moment meant or where it would lead, but for the first time in years, she wasn't spending her birthday completely alone. And somehow, despite everything that was broken in both their lives, that felt like the beginning of something important.